How to match motorcycle suspension spring rate to rider weight. Are you feeling like your motorcycle could use a little more comfort and control? One key area to focus on is matching your motorcycle suspension spring rate to your weight. This adjustment can make a world of difference in your ride. So, how do you go about it? Let's break it down step by step. First, let's talk about what spring rate actually means. The spring rate is the stiffness of the spring. A higher spring rate means a stiffer spring that requires more force to compress. On the other hand, sag is how much the suspension compresses when you sit on the bike. For most street motorcycles, you want the sag to be around 25 to 30% of the total suspension travel. This ensures that your bike absorbs bumps without bottoming out or feeling too stiff. Next, consider your weight along with the motorcycle's weight. The total load on the suspension is your weight plus any gear and the bike's weight. For example, if you weigh 100 pounds and your motorcycle weighs 400 pounds, the suspension needs to support about 600 pounds. The way your weight is distributed between the seat and handlebars also plays a role in how the suspension performs. Another factor to keep in mind is the suspension design and leverage ratio. The leverage ratio determines how much the wheel moves compared to how much the shock compresses. A higher leverage ratio means the shock compresses less for the same wheel movement, which may requiring a stiffer spring to achieve the desired sag. Now, how do you calculate the correct spring rate? A practical method is to measure the sag you want, say 28%, and adjust the spring rate accordingly. There are formulas and calculators available that take into account your weight, the bike's weight, and the leverage ratio to recommend a spring rate. For instance, if you want 28% sag, you might need a spring rate of 467 pounds per inch. Once you have selected a spring rate, you will need to adjust the preload. Preload is the initial compression of the spring before any load is applied. Adjusting the preload helps you fine-tune the sag without changing the spring itself. After making these adjustments, it's important to test the bike with the rider on it to ensure everything feels balanced. If you find that your stock spring rate is too soft for your weight, consider upgrading to a stiffer spring. Conversely, if you are lighter than the stock spring rate, a softer spring can improve comfort and traction. Always remember to measure sag with the rider fully geared up and in a riding position. Suspension tuning is not a one-and-done process. It often requires adjustments to the spring rate, preload, and damping settings to find the perfect balance for your ride. By matching the motorcycle suspension spring rate to your weight, you can achieve optimal performance and enjoy a smoother, more controlled ride.